Good evening, and a very warm welcome to all of you. I welcome you all warmly. HarperCollins and the authors of the book are very grateful all of you could make time to be here with us today. But a very, very warm welcome to our special guests this evening, cricketers Matthew Hayden and our Ashwin. That they would find time in the midst of their packed schedules was more than we could have hoped for. So big thank yous are in order there. Thank you. May I request you, Mr. Hayden, Ashwin, to please come up on stage. Our co-authors, the Impact Index team, Jaideep Varma, creator of Impact Index, Aakash Chopra, co-author and our moderator for the evening. Over the course of the evening, I'm sure we'll come to know Impact Index very well, but I will introduce it briefly nonetheless. Impact Index is a statistical system that turns on one very powerful idea, that numbers are not trivia, they are the stuff of history. The system, created by Jaideep Varma, challenges conventional readings and throws up truly startling findings. The legendary cricketer VVS Lakshman called it a very powerful idea. Numbers Do Lie tells the stories of some of Impact's most significant findings. May I request now Soham Sarkhel and Nikhil Narayan, co-authors of the book, part of the Impact Index team, to please join us on stage. We'll unveil the book now, get the evening going. May I request all of you to unveil your copies?
This is my duty, obviously, to first welcome and thank Ashwin and Matthew Hayden agreeing to be a part of this event. In fact, Hayden is coming directly from the airport, Bangalore, which used to be a lovely city earlier. It's hardly a livable city now. It's like traffic is just insane.
Why do I need headset?
So I've already buffered, I've budgeted 4 hours to go back. Whenever I'm taking that flight back home, I've budgeted 4 hours. It could take that long, apparently. But a small little word, obviously, we talk about Haydos. Intimidation was something that we associated with bowlers only. They used to intimidate people, come look into the eye, then bowl a few bouncers. After Sir Vivian Richards, I've seen only one guy who's actually intimidated bowlers. He would walk down the pitch and then ask them to bowl a bouncer. In fact, he would say that in as many words. Okay, try a bouncer. Is that all you have? So that's Matthew Hayden. Fantastic for being here. And for Ashwin, I always feel that if you give a flat track to a batsman, he'll give you a century, maybe a double century. A green top, maybe a fast bowler will give you a 5-wicket haul. But if conditions are right, Ashwin will not just win the game, he'll definitely win the game and eventually win you the series as well. So he's like a serial man of the match and man of the series award winner, the best that we have seen over the last, 50, 60 years. Nobody actually comes close. So that's Ashwin. Got Jaideep Varma, the founder of Impact Index. Thank you very much for first inventing this new system and then allowing me to be a part of this book as well. So Jaideep, let me just start with you and where you could just explain what it is so that for people to understand whether and what exactly Impact Index is all about.
So, I'll just say one thing. I just want to thank you, all of you, very much for coming. There are a lot of people here who mean a lot to me and to Impact Index. They've been sort of well for Impact Index. I want to thank Ajita, who's actually the editor of our book, and she's played a big part in making at least my parts much more likable. As far as Impact Index goes, Impact Index fundamentally measures every cricketing performance within the context of its match and the context of the series or the tournament it's a part of, which is something that for some reason we don't seem to measure cricketing performances in a series context, despite it being such an essential part of cricket history, whether it's Test cricket or especially Test cricket, but not even one-day performances are really seen within the context of. Because if that was the case, Steve Smith would have probably got the man of the tournament in the 2015 World Cup and not Matthew Stark. That's an example of what we are talking about. And so this book is actually looking at cricket from that lens. And we get some really interesting stories when we do that. And two of those, and in fact, both of you feature in the book. There's a story each on on both of you. And there are a lot of other very surprising stories in this, even about cricketers whom we probably think we know a lot about. But and there's enough in the public domain about a lot of those cricketers. But we have looked at it, when you look at things in a series context, and even in a match context sometimes. For example, since we were talking about Stark's performance in the last game, the last test match, that just on the basis of his batting, it was one of, a hugely high impact performance. If he hadn't bowled, even as a batsman, his impact would have been really huge. But I don't think it will be remembered over the ravages of time because he just made a 60, which is not really something that people remember. So I'll be talking about a couple of things in that context with you. But and of course we have quite a bit to talk about.
Yeah, so Jaideep actually claims that he'll have something on everyone, all cricketers, that they don't know themselves. So firstly, just to and we'll come to that. But Hayden, if I were to start with you and just talk about averages, we had this chat in the morning, and you said they're passé. The conventional averages aren't really telling you the entire story. Can you elaborate a bit, please?
Yeah. Well, firstly, g'day everyone. Nice to be here, and well done on delivering something which is innovative to the game. I like innovation within the game, and it does move forward. And I think the game, has moved forward so much in the past decade. And I guess further to my point with averages and aggregate, is it in balance with exactly what you just said? With the Mitchell Starc performance. Is it that important that he averages 24 or whatever it is in Test match cricket, or does it actually challenge? Especially as an opening batsman, I've always felt that some of my best innings were those that were a hard-fought 30 in the first innings of a Test match with, a fresh opponent on a wicket that's, taking seam. And those performances, I guess, you really savour because they don't go on the history. Exactly. From an average and aggregate point of view. Well, one of the big cuts and thrusts of modern day cricket is strike rates. And, we have this conversation often in the commentary box, and I'm sure we do as a press corps as well, about, what role that is starting to now play. We're seeing that Test cricket often doesn't go 5 days. It will go barely into the fourth day of the game. And it'll be interesting to see the average of how many days Test match cricket go for now, but it's definitely not 5. So it's having these direct correlations with the way that a cricketer perceives the game. And the current cricketers are perceiving the game in a very different way to my generation and generations of those before me as well. So I think it's great. I think it's really interesting that you've come up with a different solution to the game.
Oh. Well, Ash, you are obviously after Haydos's generation, so to speak, and he's already saying that, okay, these averages, the conventional numbers, they're not passé maybe, but they're slightly irrelevant in the context. So what is your view on numbers? And you're obviously a very thinking and intelligent cricketer that everybody know. What are your thoughts?
I mean, like just Haydos just mentioned, hard fought 40 for an opening batsman on a wicket where it is doing a bit. He could have done all the job, and the dirty job has been done by him. And the batsmen follow him, can make the runs and actually boost up their average. As far as I'm concerned, the game is so far been analysed in a very opinion-based thing, because it always becomes an opinion fought by another person or an opinion fought by a cricketer and an expert. Where, as I always mention, cricket is still a way long shot at being a really professional sport. When you look at football is completely controlled by your managers and their combinations, and they're held responsible. I think one day cricket will also get there because of the evolution of T20 cricket.
Right. So, Haydos, this book, the chapter that Jaideep is talking about, it actually tells us that you're the 4th highest impact Test batsman in the history of Australian cricket. So that puts you ahead of Ricky Ponting, Steve Waugh, Ian Chappell.
It was never in doubt, was it really? Well, apart from Ricky, I considered most of the other players as being interior decorators. The real engine room at the Australian cricket team was in the top 3.
Actually, that's pretty much what it
actually
see,
correct. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
No, actually, it's a really startling thing because after Bradman, Greg Chappell, and Neil Harvey, you come up as the next highest impact batsman. A little bit higher impact than even Ricky Ponting. The reason is, of course, you opened the batting and you scored a higher proportion of runs for in Australian cricket than anybody in that period. And that's a huge thing because that's not something that regular stats can actually calculate. Of course, part of it was also because you were an opening batsman. But
I just wonder how much of it's also got to do with win ratios. Like I look at someone like Adam Gilchrist, for example, who, he used to come in and just rip an opposition
absolutely
apart.
He's also very high impact.
Is he?
Yes, he has to be. I mean, but
I would have thought so.
we've all seen what he has done. We have all seen what he has
I
done.
think he's going to find it hard to say these things, but I just need to say something about Haydos, my first experience with having him in the same dressing room. As a 20-year-old, I was just walking into a dressing room where Haydos was there, Mahi was there, Hussey was there. These are all huge names I only watched on television, and we were playing a game in Mohali. That was the first game of the IPL for CSK, and walked into the dressing room. They were having a discussion quietly about the Kings 11 team, and MS was like, Srishant can bowl really good outswingers, he gets the ball to shape away, and Badri was like, I'll try and use the pace and all that. So, and Hussey was like, yeah, I'll look to use the pace and get off to a good start. And Haydos just put his hand up and said, I will take him down the ground. Well, that's right.
I knew you were going to say this.
And he probably did, yeah.
And he did. He actually did. The first
Yeah.
over, he just stepped out and tonked him straight back. Of course, he didn't like him, which was a different thing altogether.
Really?
I don't blame him. Haydos. And the next game, we were playing Mumbai Indians, and we were playing at Chennai, and he said, I'm going to take that guy down the ground and sweep him and all that. Who are we talking about? Sean Pollard. And it was crazy, He actually hit him down the ground and swept him the very next ball. I said, cricket is pretty easy.
Had a massive head. I think what you're trying to say is I had a really big head.
No, but
No, that intimidation. I have another little story actually to share. This test match was in Chennai, so Haydos, I was not even playing that test match. I walked in as a substitute. Somebody had gone out, very hot. Haydos was batting.
Short leg?
So I was, yeah, exactly. So I was standing at short leg. So he was very close to me, obviously. He said, mate, this pitch is going to turn and bite and it's going to spit like a cobra. I said, Haydos, I'm not even playing. I mean, why are you sledging me? I'm not even playing.
he's a batsman sledging.
So impact doesn't count for that. Obviously, these things are
maybe someday
unaccounted for. So that's of course Hayden.
No, but there is one more thing, very interesting thing, which is not something anybody has ever spoken of. He has built the most partnerships in the history of Australian Test cricket after Bradman. That's an amazing thing, actually. And I don't know if this rings true to you because after Bradman to have the maximum partnerships in the history of the game, 140 years or whatever, it's a pretty amazing thing about you.
I think it's always something which I've really enjoyed is building partnerships. That's right from the start. When I look back at my initial partnership with Trevor Barsby, it would be an unknown name to you guys, but he was a fabulous right-hand batsman for Queensland, and he used to really dominate. I was just there to sort of remove the shine off the ball, the buff remover we were called. But Trevor used to come in and take an opposition apart. Then obviously formed that partnership initially with Michael Slater. And that wasn't such a successful partnership, but it had the potential.
Yes.
And then the love affair really with Justin Langer is something that...
One of the great opening partnerships in cricket.
And I think it just didn't stop there either. I mean, JL and I had a very special friendship both on and off the field, but I guess looking back, it was something that has been built more into the modern day game, is really not recognising so much your own individual 50s and 100s and etc., but very much there's a collaboration between two batsmen, and you'll often see them reward each other now when those 50 partnerships come up as a benchmark, 100 partnerships come up. And look, the last test match is a prime example of exactly what happens when you lose a partnership and all of a sudden then one side capitulates and there's more pressure. So, holding close to those partnerships, in particular I think in the Asian conditions, where the game can shift, and a series can shift on the basis of a 10-minute loss of focus in a partnership scenario. And I'm sure, Ash, you can talk about that also from a spin bowling perspective as well, where you in combination with a quick or another spinner, can really work hard at an opposition, and you'll talk about that for sure in the dressing room.
Well, I think partnerships are very, very important from where you left off, because there have been situations in the game where I've actually bowled and realized that the other bowler at the end is actually doing a great job. And one bowler I always felt when bowling alongside him that wicket could fall any minute was Zahir Khan. And he was obviously at the very end of his career when I came in to start playing, but we were bowling a spell in Melbourne against Australia in 2011-12, and to me that was one of the best opportunities the Indian team had to actually make a mark in a series and take forward so far that we played away from home. And that series, me and Zach were bowling just after lunch, and Ed Cowan and somebody else was batting. I'm not too sure about it, but it just looked like the pressure was building every minute. And Zach just bowled a spell. We got 2-3 wickets together. I got a wicket from the other end, and that's always one of those spells. And after that, obviously, bowling with Jadeja gives me a lot of cushion, and we do end up extracting a lot of pressure in a session. And we've also played enough to understand that when it happens, like you rightly said, it happens very quickly, and the game can change on its head. So you're right. I think bowling partnerships are a lot more complicated than batting partnerships, but definitely if you're aware of it, I think you can create pockets of pressure.
A lot less intelligent is what you're trying to say.
Not necessarily. I'm just saying it's a far more complicated.
Oh, okay.
So impact index actually takes into account the economy rate in a test match scenario where so Jadeja is bowling from the other end, he's just bowling tight, no wickets to show for, but that economy is obviously helping the guy at the other end to pick wickets. Partnership breaking is also something that
since you mentioned economy rate, since you're talking about it, and since he just mentioned Jadeja, his partner, can I just give you one impact fact here? It's very interesting. No one has been a more restrictive bowler in test history than Jadeja, except for Lance Gibbs. So after Lance Gibbs, his restrictive ability has won India more matches than any bowler has, managed in the history of the game. That is a huge thing, and I can imagine how that must help.
Just give you a perspective into how I look at it. It's not we, it's I. Why I say I is because everybody can perceive it very differently. But as far as I am concerned, when you go through a spell of bowling in partnerships with Jadeja, it's very complementary. Someone like a Jadeja at times benefits through my imagination. And someone like me can actually benefit in a spell whereas the wicket is absolutely dead and a good partnership is going and he gets into a very tight leash and it eventually helps a release shot and I get a wicket.
Right.
Why I'm saying this is one without the other is kind of very difficult to survive, and to a large extent we actually don't know who's playing the dominant and who's playing the lesser role. And it's happened, I've bowled with a few partners in the past, but as far as I'm concerned, these partnerships are entirely based on how uncomfortable a bowler can keep the batsman at.
Right.
Not necessarily in terms of economy rate. I for one thought Pragyan Ojha was one of the best bowling partners I've had.
Right.
Because he had this very canny ability of troubling the batsman all the time. He had a lot of guy, he used to use the crease very well, and it looked like, there used to be competitions between me and Ojha that if he got a longer spell, he would steal my 5 wickets away. So that was sort of happening, and very unfortunate that we lost a good round.
Yeah, he's a pretty high impact bowler on our system also.
So guys, now I must warn you that your jaws might drop after I say what I'm going to say. And so please pick it up after this startling impact index finding is out. So Ravichandran Ashwin is the highest impact test player in the history of test cricket. We're talking 140 years. We're rating him. The impact index is rating him ahead of Sir Don Bradman.
In fact, he's not the Bradman of bowling. As Steve was said, he is higher impact than Bradman. And it's very simple, really. I'm sure a batsman, anyone knows that a high impact bowler will have more impact than a batsman in a test match, because, that's why they say bowlers win matches. So that's the nature of the beast anyway. But there are two things that make him an insanely high impact player. It's like if somebody wrote his story as fiction, you would say this is OTT, over the top. No, it's actually like that, and so those two facts are, and they are easily on. One is, of course, this guy has won 7 Man of the Series awards. I'm talking in a language that normal people understand. We don't consider Man of the Series in our system. We are looking at it in a match and series context, and we have our own measure. But I'm explaining this. 7 Man of the Series awards in 15 is insane. You have even someone like a Muralidharan who's won some 9 in 61. It's that
Stop.
insane. It's really an incredible thing. That is one thing. the manner in which he has won his team series is, it's no wonder that India is the number one test side in the world. I mean, with a bowler like that, you were always going to be if some of your batsmen helped score runs, and that also has happened. The other interesting thing is you are also the most consistent bowler in the history of the game. Your consistency of failure rate is 5%, which is insane. Because, there is no bowler in the game who has been... Yes, there are, people say that you've played only 13 tests away, and though you have a series-defining performance in the West Indies also. Okay, not one of the great sides right now, but still it's there. And of course, you are hopefully, you've not even finished half your career. So, there's still a lot here. You haven't. So obviously, those things are there. But you've played more than 40 tests. There is no reason to be shy of saying this. This is a fact. As of now, you may have played more games in India and had a little, but I think we should also...
Go and say it. I'm the
okay,
greatest impact player.
Okay, say it, Ash. Say it. You're the best.
If at all I needed a motivational speech before I came to this
Well done, Jaideep.
The whole book is there. I hope you read it.
I mean, like you say, you can always find reasons to better yourself, and definitely before anybody else says this, I'm the first one to acknowledge of things that I haven't achieved in life. But one thing that stands out really very clearly as far as I'm concerned, and I'm not mincing words here, if somebody else got 2 games, I always thought I just had 1 innings. And be it my belief about it, or be it my thought process, or be it how things have been inflicted on me, that's just the way it's been right from my under 14 days where I turned up for Tamil Nadu. And if I played against Hyderabad or Karnataka, somebody else played against Goa.
Right.
So that's exactly been my career path all through my life. And I've been told repetitively in my house. I mean, I used to go back home and literally, I stopped giving excuses. I stopped giving excuses when I was 12 because I didn't have an excuse to give. Whenever I went back home and I told my mom, he is more lucky that he played against Goa, the first thing she said was, we are not rich enough to get you to play against Karnataka or Goa. So, I mean, it was that simple, and I think it is that hard-fought genes that many Indians have in the current generation that's probably a part of my psyche. And tomorrow there could well be an opportunity like everybody else has for an exit clause or for a down phase or for a phase that you go through now. But this thought process of mine, I don't think is going to change much, and that's exactly why many people feel that I'm a little cocksure.
That's all right. So, Jaideep, so we've got, he claims that he knows things that you don't know about yourself. So, let's start with Hayden. So, what is...
trivia.
No, it is hidden fact. I've been very careful. It's a hidden... No, it's a hidden cricket fact. Cricket fact.
It's not trivia.
So, okay, so go ahead. So, for Hayden, what is it that you have to offer?
So, let me ask you, which one do you think, you made a triple century, you made a great double century in a deciding test match in India. Which is your highest impact test match performance? What do you think it is? Which one do you think it is?
I'm thinking, true to my word before, I'm thinking of a performance where, I probably got 30 or 40 and...
No, it's not 30 or 40. Okay. No, I mean, we're talking about highest impact. I mean,
I'm sure this is what you want to hear. I have no idea.
Okay.
Tell me.
So I'll tell you, you tell me if it rings true. You tell me. In 2002, in the second test match at Sharjah against Pakistan, Pakistan were all out for 59. And you came out to bat and you batted for 7.5 hours. And you scored 119 runs, and that's it, 119. So you were 9th out at 310, and Australia couldn't add a single run after that. So you were pretty much there at the crease when Australia made all their runs. And then Pakistan were all out for 53. Yes, Pakistan was going through disarray, but 119.
You reckon?
Nobody else made a 50. Nobody else made a 50 in the game. Yeah. Not one of your teammates. None of your teammates.
Yeah, it was pretty hot. It was 58 degrees. That's what I remember. And I remember I had Shoaib Akhtar's ear for 3 overs when he sledged me coming on the ground. I said, mate, you'd want to make it quick. You've got 18 balls to make impact. And he didn't. And he got carried off the ground after that. But yeah.
Because that's not an innings people, that's not a quality necessarily people remember about you today. That you grafted for 7.5 hours on a difficult pitch. It was clearly a difficult pitch, right? I mean, nobody else got a 50. And
it was a pretty flat pitch. It was just so hot. Okay. I mean, I think they might have changed the game.
I've known players who actually, when they score runs, they say, it was very tough. When they get out, it's a flat pitch actually, and I missed out.
Yeah.
You're saying the opposite.
The opposite, yeah.
But, we're talking about Sharjah. I mean, seriously, it was a flat it was a flat wicket.
But why should the Pakistanis be defeated by Heat? 59 and 53?
I know, they just kept on missing straight ones at Warnie. Warnie just kept on floating up these straight ones and they kept on swinging around it. So I think they were thinking the same. It was too hot.
So you've got something on Ashwin as well?
Ashwin, I won't talk about his bowling because I think the world has done enough
All right,
about
go
that.
ahead.
Let me say something interesting about his batting. Since 2016, which is last Jan till now, Ashwin is actually the second highest impact batsman from the number 6 position in the world after Johnny Bairstow. And you have built the most partnerships in the world in that period. And I think that's interesting because a lot of people bizarrely still don't see you as an all-rounder. Impact does overwhelmingly, but I think a lot of people don't. And I don't know what you feel about that.
Like I told you, I mean, perceptions differ, and I've never thought myself as a lesser batsman any time. Whenever I go out there, I want to get runs. I want to be there for a longer time because when I bowl, nobody gives their wicket away. So why should I give my wicket away when I can? Even nowadays, number 11 batsmen don't give their wickets away. So it makes complete sense to do it because I remember once upon a time I used to watch a program called Cricket Classics on Star.
Oh yeah, great show.
ESPN, and
Yeah.
when we were talking about the so-called great spinners bowling with a lot of guile, half of your 8, 9, 10, 11 is you stomp the ball and get caught at mid-on and mid-off. When number 11 stomped the ball these days, it was a mile. Trust me about that, the bats and all those kind of things. And the batsmen don't stop anymore because we have to fight. The bowlers have to fight to get wickets and everybody knows it. I mean, as a batsman, I actually know that I've done pretty well as a batsman from 2016, but one thing that has definitely been different from what I've done in the past is I've played complete percentage cricket. There have hardly been any risky shots in the kind of that has been one of the reasons why I've been in some good form, and I've played 50 balls more than I've always wanted to. Whenever I felt like I need to play a release shot, I just buckled down and played a few more overs and got into that phase. And I've definitely understood the ebbs and flows of the games far better than I did before. People have always spoken about experience, and as a youngster, I always thought experience was just a word they used to shield themselves under. But now I certainly believe that with experience, you look at Test cricket in a very different way.
No, I agree. Yeah, I think experience does count. There's no question. And it's the little subtleties of the game. Like it might be that, as an impact, it'd be interesting to see whether your index rates a performance where you bat through the session. So if you've got especially as an opener, because you might have a situation where, like Matt Renshaw did in his first Test match, I think he had to play 13 overs ahead of the end of day. Yeah. Really tough period as an opening batsman to come in, and I think Australia sort of stood up in the home series and thought, gee, that's actually outstanding to get through that period of time. Consequently, starting and finishing sessions. So as a batsman, how often do you get out in before the first 20 balls? Just what you were saying. If you can, Brian Lara used to have that theory as well. He used to bat didn't care what he got off, the first 30 or 40 balls. That was his time to consolidate the innings and set himself up, in the partnership and in the game. But at the other end of the stick as well is when you close sessions. So
right.
At which particular time do those players, and I'm thinking someone like Ricky Ponting, I think he did an outstanding job of always closing out the session really well, because only then can you start building that momentum come the next session, whenever that might be, and that might be the start of play the next day. So it's those subtleties that further to your point, come about through experience. The lesser mind or the less experienced mind will be there, and he'll be taking advantage of the situation, but he won't be thinking about the strategy of the game. And that's what we love about Test match cricket, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hidos, it's your quote. That I've seen God, he bats at number 4 for India.
Yeah, throwaway line.
Yeah, exactly. So
throwaway line.
So that's there's a chapter here in the Impact Index book, and that when you talk about Test cricket and the impact amongst the Indian batsmen, it's not Sachin who's had the highest impact, it was Rahul Dravid.
Yeah, and that doesn't really surprise me, to be honest, because I think for a start, going by what you were saying before, he's batting higher up the order. I think Rahul Dravid was a very unique individual. Talk about gall and courage and determination and just that sort of persistence to just hang in there in all conditions. And I think the biggest thing about Rahul Dravid as well is that and I sound like a real fan because I am, he was remarkable away from India as well.
Yes.
You know, I think the best players in the world, they play all over the world and they play consistently well all over the world. And Rahul Dravid had that game and that mindset to be able to stabilise his own thinking when the conditions weren't quite in his favour. You know, we're talking about some remarkable innings like the one that, you know, he almost single-handedly with VVS, I noticed his quote on the front here as well, in the Test match at Eden Gardens. You know, remarkable performance, has to rate surely as right up there with one of the most prominent partnerships
Absolutely.
of all time in the game. So, look, it doesn't surprise me. Equally, they had such different games, but the game, in essence, they were generational players. You know, those two names will stand the test of legacy within our game, and it's long, the legacy in cricket as well.
What did you feel, Ashwin, being a part of that dressing room? So obviously, Haydos has mentioned about Rahul. You've been a part of the dressing room where Sachin bats at 4 and Rahul bats at 3. So what did you feel that, okay, who was, in a sense, more important, if for lack of a better word?
See, I watched both of them play right from when I was 10 or 11 years old. I never used to miss a test match in Chennai or in Bangalore. I used to travel and watch the games. I think you'll have to compare the impact index of Sachin of the early
90s
or 90s.
Correct.
With Rahul, then probably there might be a huge difference. But like what
Which
Haydos
there is
said,
actually.
I just think on a pretty huge scale we miss the most important factor for a cricketer is that of game awareness. And like Haydos just said,
Absolutely.
I think Rahul Bhai just had the best game awareness I've ever seen. He understood the game like no one else, and that is something you need to definitely applaud, because when you're up against another team, which I have recently encountered myself, when you see 11 guys who can actually think on their own and actually have a great amount of game awareness, you will eventually find yourself in different gridlocks. And we have personally encountered that when we played England recently. Thought the game awareness of the English side was like multiple folds ahead of most of the teams that I played against. It was not because of the team, it was because of every individual being able to contribute and able to think about the game. And in those regards, I thought Rahul Bhai was fabulous. He not only added advice and talked very well about the game, he understood the nuances of the game, not just about batting. When you associate yourself with batters, it's most often then about their game, about their strengths, about their weakness, about how they perceive the game. But when it came to Rahul Bhai, he absolutely understood most skills of the game. And I thought he won a couple of very important series as a captain also. It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, that's true. Actually,
If I can just elaborate one little fact, I'll give you, because he's talking about it, which is that in the history of Test cricket, the two batsmen who have won the most series for their country as batsmen are Inzamam Ulaq and Rahul Dravid. These are the two. I don't know if that rings true for you, because you played against Inzamam also. And these are the two batsmen. And in the history of Test cricket.
Such different players, aren't they? That's why Test match cricket is fabulous, isn't it? You know, you look at those two players, you've got one that's kind of, he's almost like, you know, the sloth of cricket. Just sort of ever so slowly creeping and moving, but gets the job done.
Yeah,
you know, where the other one, I think, is, you know, Rahul is an incredibly passive-aggressive personality. You know, he's very, very aware. He's very in control. You know, it's one thing that I saw in Rahul often is just how he would set himself up within an innings, talking about that game awareness. You know, there was no room for superstition in Rahul Dravid's mind. He was very organised in his thinking, and he's kind of like the Ivan Lendl of cricket.
Fantastic.
I just need to say about this. Most of my cricket stories are from people who played for India from Tamil Nadu. And Balaji once told me that he was bowling. I remember that series where he bowled beautifully in Pakistan, and he was bowling a shade under 140. And he said Inzamam made him look actually like Saurav Ganguly. He said he would almost come forward, get beaten, go back and play it on the back foot. So
he had too much time, actually. Too much time, agree. So moving on to a very, like the recent, the battle that right now. So one side is Steve Smith, the other side is Kohli, of course. So Virat Kohli, according to the impact index, is the third highest impact number 4 in the history of Test cricket. So it's after Greg Chappell and Everton Weeks. And on the other end, there is Steve Smith, who's the most consistent Test batsman ever. And that's because of his failure rate being just 25%, and Sir Don Bradman had 27% failure rate. What do you think? You can start with Kohli. Ash can talk about Smith maybe.
Yeah, well, I think Virat Kohli, he reminds me a lot in his game as Ricky Ponting. You know, very sort of similar in the way that they're, again, sort of passive-aggressive, like very aggressive, but also it's almost like there's a cocoon around their batting crease. Nothing really can penetrate Virat. And early doors, I thought he was someone that, you know, didn't have quite that control. He's now mastered his own thinking. There's just no question of it. And his performances now are so consistent because of that fact. You can't have the highs and the lows. Like even the last, you know, few days, he's really shown his strength as a leader. You know, coming to the fore, saying you just got to take it on the chin. It's resonating. All you guys have been towing the party line as well. It's been a very much an organised approach to the way that you've thought about the loss, how you're now preparing for the next 3 Test matches. And that's Virat's leadership. The other thing that I love about Virat is his commitment to excellence in his physical approach to the game. I mean, he will not tolerate individuals at any of the formats. And you've got to bear in mind also that, you know, we're talking about Test cricket, but, you know, the guys are playing 3 formats of the game and they're playing it within the same month sometimes. And that's impressive, super impressive and underrated, I think.
It's huge.
But one thing that he's consistently done, Virat, is he's gone, you know what, we're going to be fit as well. I mean, talk about, you know, the great professional sides on the planet. I'm thinking to the EPL, for example, and back in Australia, our Australian rules. They're super athletes. True. And I think as cricketers, you know, when we're looking as a playing group to becoming a better product, that's one of the non-negotiables that I think India are now starting to really build on. No longer is acceptable to what we call Sydney Harbour Bridge it over the ball, you know, and it's very. And in Bradman's time, you know, you see the old footage, and it'd be, oh, jolly good old shot, boy, and the ball had raced past just there. It's like now it's, you know, you're hungry in the 3 disciplines of the game as well, you know, which is just magic. So he's taken that level of approach to a different level in this country, and I really believe that's, you know, made a huge difference between you hovering for years where you're sort of in that, you know, mid part of the ICC rankings, and now you're, you know, bashing it out at number 1.
So that's Virat Kohli, of course. So Steve Smith, actually looks very ungainly, but the fact is, so we are conditioned to look at things aesthetically. If the batsman is aesthetic, you tend to appreciate his craft a little more. That's how we are conditioned. But Steve Smith is a different kettle of fish. Doesn't get out against India, so that's also a fact. Like unstoppable Smith, he's already scored 1,000+ runs.
I think it would be very unfair to put Steve Smith in those brackets because personally I'm a huge fan of Steve Smith.
Right.
I don't know if Hayden remembers, we had a person called Steve Rickson who was our fielding coach at Chennai Super Kings, and he was from New South Wales.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
And like about 5-6 years ago, I was telling him that Stephen Smith must be in your side. You must be wrong. You're going wrong somewhere if you're not playing him. And he agreed. He said he's a fabulous cricketer because I had seen him in the emerging cricket 8 overs when we were on tour there. The first thing I noticed about a cricketer is his game awareness and his plan and how he makes runs. And to me, he is the most effective and the most versatile Test batsman going around now.
Fantastic.
And, by a mile, because why I would say that is he's not the most strongest when you look at him physically, but he never goes at strike rate less than 100 in a one-day game. Probably T20 is not his strongest suit, but I would still say if he's batting at 3, he's probably better than most of the contemporaries. And if you're talking about Virat and Stephen Smith, it will be a very, very difficult comparison, but I'd like to think Stephen Smith is one of the most versatile batsmen going around.
So Hayden is here to commentate, so I can ask him. Actually, I'll leave you out of it, Ash. So Kohli or Smith?
Oh, they have to pick
He's
one.
He's an Aussie.
Yeah, that's all right. Let him pick. It's all right. His heart is very, very Indian, I guess.
Gee, it's
Spent too much time here.
Well, in these conditions, I'd pick Kohli. And in Australian conditions, I would pick.
Great answer.
Because you never used to leave. You never used to leave outside off. You actually just left it alone.
Yeah, no, well, that's my. So when in Rome, I'm picking Kohli. When in Rome.
When in Rome.
I'm sure
so
that's the answer
Kohli.
you wanted to hear. But it's very hard to compare both these players because they are very different in their approach. I mean, it's a bit like trying to compare. The two players which I loved in our era, which were Lara and, of course, Sachin Tendulkar. I mean, it's impossible because they had such different games. They had beautiful games. I mean, who will ever forget Brian Lara? Probably the only player that I've ever known that can click in and out of batting structures. In other words, the captain, Steve Waugh, would say, here's an onside field, Brian. And then he'd suddenly change his bat direction up here somewhere in the lofty heights of the gods, and everything would disappear through the offside. And he'd go, well, that's no problem. Set an offside field, and that beautiful flaying backswing would come down and would be whipped around to the onside. So, very different. And the way Sach used to do that as well. He just used to control play and be in play, but control play. And both of the guys that you mentioned as well, and Virat and Smudger, they control play and they do it in a very unique way.
So obviously I've held you back for more than I actually asked for. So just one last little bit, it will be incomplete if we don't talk about T20 cricket and the numbers that are now looked at differently, because you've been a part of a very successful franchise, both of you, Chennai Super Kings. And if there is a sport, a format that's taking numbers and looking at them differently, that is T20 cricket, right? So how are they looking differently, and is that the way forward for not just franchise cricket but bilateral cricket or country playing country?
You want me to go? I'm the older fella, aren't I? You're watching it. Yeah, look, I love T20 cricket. I've always have really enjoyed the format of the game. And the reason why is because as a dour opening batsman, I'd feel like I'd waste, 100, 120 balls before sort of, inching into a platform where I could start to dominate the performance. Justin Lang has got a great piece of memorabilia up in his house, and it's of him scoring 50.
And you were on one.
And I'm one.
One, yeah. But the previous game you were 50 and he was one.
Probably, but that wrecks my story. No, see, now it's very much about a ball-by-ball event. I mean, we're looking at strike rates as being a significant stat within Test match cricket. I really believe that can shift the dynamics of a batting unit just on the basis that you're a more dominant player. And they'll certainly catch the eye, won't they? You're thinking of guys like David Warner, that look to take on, at their peril at times, take on the performance, but it's a front-running performance. So all of a sudden, once you're on the back foot as a bowling unit, it becomes very difficult to make the impact. So T20 cricket, and he's a really good case actually, because where was David Warner, in the early stages of his career? And the answer is he was playing T20 cricket. He actually was one of the few players that arrived onto the international stage on the basis of his T20 performances. From there, he was committed to becoming a very good Test match cricketer, which he is now, an exceptional Test match cricketer. He's tightened up his defence. He's knowing when to strike and when to lay low. His experience and his commitment to bat long periods of time have revolutionised his game, and that's important. But T20 cricket is really a unique property, and it's franchise cricket that certainly builds the imagination of the sporting public. There was one performance to challenge Test match cricket. There was one performance that I saw where Sachin Tendulkar was about to break the all-time record for highest Test match runs of any nation. And we were in Mohali and there was no one in the stadium. And I thought, wow, this is Test match cricket in India. The God and the gods are aligning to set the stage for what is a really significant, monumental event. And there was no one there until, the last 15 minutes when buses of school kids had, arrived and were starting to line the angles of the TV cameras so that the stadium looked full. And in fact, they let so many firecrackers off that it delayed play for about 20 minutes while we sort of waited for the smoke to clear. And the other day, Test match cricket is in a challenging position because, crowds aren't voting with their feet. And that's a great indicator for administrations and boards right across the world that, we need to treat Test match cricket with a degree of sensitivity that's lending weight to our fans, the most important stakeholder, that want to go see. You mentioned before, and I think it's a real challenge for India in particular. Test match cricket needs to be traditional. You need Chopra Stadium and watch a game of Test match cricket because it is a stronghold Tamil Nadu region that loves the game of Test match cricket. You need to come to Mumbai and you need to see, whether it's any one of the stadiums that you play Test match cricket there, but you need to be able to see it where there's a lot of people that want to go watch it. And I love the fact that, the game gets taken to regional communities, not just in Australia, but also here. I really do enjoy that, but there is something sacred about, and it works, the format. The Boxing Day Test match is a unique Test match on the landscape of Test match cricket. The Lord's Test match is a very unique Test match in the landscape. Who doesn't want to go on a tour to England to play at those traditional venues? So, I would almost treat Test match cricket the opposite way. I'd almost make it more traditional. Let the players manipulate the game and do with it what they may do it because their skill sets are profound. But don't mess with it too much because it's the fans that also have a romance, not just the players, around the beautiful strategy that Test match cricket is.
And there's this one T20 story that comes up, and this is the last bit, promise. So Chennai Super Kings.
I'll start eating you soon.
Okay, no, this is the last bit, 100% promise. So Chennai Super Kings, there was this player Subramania Badrinath, and he comes out as the highest impact batsman who's absorbed most pressure
in the history of the IPL.
In the history of the IPL. Did
We
you
have to
actually
ask you
feel
this.
it that way?
Yes.
It doesn't. Okay.
Yeah, I think Hayden would second this. In the year 2011, in 2010, we had actually come back from way behind and actually went on to win the tournament. And those were contributed some individual performances towards the late end of the tournament. But in 2011, Suresh Raina was not getting bat on ball. Hayden was also struggling. We were hardly getting any scores on the board. And whenever we were chasing 150, we found ourselves 20 for 2, 25 for 2. And it was Badri who took us through that season. And very few would actually even remember Badri doing those contributions because the most difficult thing in a T20 game is to absorb pressure, rotate strike, and play risk-free boundaries. These are the most difficult things to do in a T20 match.
And that
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that. We've been saying that.
Fantastic, because nobody has been buying him lately. So more power to you, Impact Index, hopefully.
Sorry, Aakash, just to say that, nobody is buying him because that part of the game doesn't exist anymore.
Fair enough. So thank you very much. Thanks a lot for...
Any Q&As?
If there are any questions, just 2 or 3. We've held them back for too long any which way. So if there are, please, we can have a mic.
It's got to be one brave soul out there.
Is there anybody?
Hi, congratulations on the book, Jaideep and Aakash. The question I had was, again, I think I've not read the book yet, but a lot of statistics analysis in cricket has been around the individual.
Sorry? But around
individual players.
Individuals, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But I have felt over the years that it's a certain pack of players who have the impact. So is that something you have in plan, like analyzing a team or a pack of players?
Yeah, but when you're calculating the impact of a player within the context of a team, you're automatically doing that. And see, that's the interesting thing about Matthew Hayden, because when you're in a strong side, you invariably share impact with the other strong players, the other great players. So for somebody like him to actually, because he's sharing impact with all those great players, like he mentioned Gilchrist, there's Ricky Ponting, there's Damian Martin, there's Justin Langer. I mean, they are all in the same side. And to still come out as the highest, such a high impact batsman, Australia's third highest impact batsman, it actually does the job of doing both. It looks at your performance within the team context, but it also can isolate what you have done, over your career as an individual. That is the thing it does.
Say, this is just my experience. Cricket is actually not a team sport. It is an individual sport where some extraordinary individuals come together and get the team to deliver. Because why I say this is because whatever you do in cricket is you doing it separately. Where you're batting, you're bowling, your 6 balls are in your control, you're facing the bowler, and nobody ever comes and tells you, you go and do this. If something goes wrong, I will take the blame. It's always you versus you rather than an opponent.
Actually, that's a very nice way of putting it, actually. Yeah. It's a brilliant way of putting it. No, we are looking at all performances from the scorecard. So I guess, if a particular team or a team of a particular era is high impact, of course we are calculating team impact also. If John Buchanan is the coach, he gets credit in that manner. But we can't isolate, those are also not very tangible things. A contribution a coach makes to a team is not tangible. And we are looking at only the scorecard really and trying to use things in the scorecard which has never been used before.
Culturally, though, cricket's so different, isn't it? To, you mentioned it before with football coaches. You're out of the game as a coach,
Yeah.
but you're so in the game as well. Not so much to the point where you're getting players pulled off here, there, and everywhere, and rotated like there is in the football codes. But it will come. That time will most certainly come.
T20s.
And it will come in T20s as well, yeah. And there'll be another book. You guys will be making more money. Impact coaches.
Only if books made money hit us in India. Only if. They just don't. So that's it then?
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah. You do have
okay,
a question.
last.
Okay.
Well, I think, Star as a broadcaster has been
High on it.
looking at, is it power index?
Yeah.
And I think it's, from a broadcaster sense, it's nice to have call it what you like, but it's nice to have a weighting system so that you do get an opportunity to have some talkability around it. It's mostly in the shorter versions of the game as well. This tends to come up more, but you obviously have a lot more time in the day of Test match cricket to develop a content thread. So, is there a resistance to it? I don't really. Do you think that there is a resistance to it?
Yeah, in full disclosure, I've worked with
Right.
Okay.
And cricket info.
Let me just put this into perspective because you brought this up. Because I'm generally for someone who's into systems. If I have to go by your impact index, which I haven't gone through the book yet, but if it is about a person's ability to win the game rather than just about mere numbers, I'm for it. Because if you tune into Star or if you tune into any channel before an auction day of an IPL, whatever it is, if you tune in, they would actually rate a lot of players very high just because of their numbers, about their wicket-taking ability, about their whatever stats you can bring in. But most of those players wouldn't be figuring in my team.
Ashwin, I have to say this because now that you said this, I'm sorry, otherwise I'll never forgive myself. When you do become IPL captain, please do consider working with us for a year because that's exactly what we do. That is exactly what we do.
That's the best sales pitch that you've ever made.
Yeah.
That performance is contributing in making the team win the game than just making up the numbers.
Just to bring an example of what happened at the last year's, okay, let me not go there, then you'll start guessing, double guessing. So, I think when a team is batting first, if a certain particular batsman makes runs, I would know the result of the game. That's how it is. Because if somebody goes at a strike rate of 120 and I'm looking at the opponent team, I straight away know this game is gone, done and dusted. Because that's where the T20 game is headed. Because just to bring an example, at Wankhede, we made 6 runs in 3 balls. Johnson Charles got 6 runs in 1 ball. That is the difference, and that is the way to go forward. We will need batters to play those big shots, and we will need bowlers who will say, all right, let me go for a few sixes here, but let me break the game and bowl those quality deliveries. That's where the T20 game is headed. And if that's what the impact index is all about, I'll consider it.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you very much. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks a lot for your patient hearing as well. Thank you, Ashwin. Thank you, Hayden.
Pleasure.
Thanks a lot. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, guys.